Look, if you sat where I sit, you wouldn't believe the correspondence that comes across my desk in relation to household bills, and we've talked about health insurance recently, but in particular electricity prices, businesses and individuals just saying simply something's got to give. Why are they the way they are? Electricity prices. Well, the carbon dioxide tax is one of the issues. But as I said last night on the show with Richo on Sky News, the renewable energy target says that we have to have 40% of our electric power from renewable energy by 2035. Just that. Don't worry about the consequences of this. Now, over and above the carbon dioxide tax, consumers are paying in New South Wales at least $200 a year each more for these green subsidies. Now, Tony Abbott brilliantly, not long after he became Prime Minister, and in fact during the election campaign, said he wasn't going to run down the road with a bucket of money after Holden. He told SPC Ardmona there was no taxpayers' money. He told Toyota there was no taxpayers' money. Why then is there taxpayers' money for wind power and solar power? As I said on television last night, Richo and I could run a business if the cost was picked up by the taxpayer. And as Albie Schultz said, now retired from the federal seat of Hume, to be replaced by the quite brilliant young newcomer Angus Taylor, Albie Schultz said in the seat of Hume alone, one federal seat, the turbine subsidies are between $500 million and $1 billion a year. $10 billion over 10 years. Billion. As he said, you could rebuild the Goulburn Hospital for $150 million. You could fix mobile phones and TV reception black spots for $2 million. You could duplicate the Barwon Highway for $600 million. And this is the age when we're supposed to be ending entitlements. As John McEnroe would say, you can't be serious. This must end. I've got endless letters from business people. Just one alone, an industrial user, the other day, got a $244,000 electricity bill. $32,500 attributed to renewable energy targets, $45,000 to the carbon tax. Every industry, every individual faces higher electricity bills due to a carbon dioxide tax and this renewable energy target. This is all this CO2 rubbish that we've gone on with. The sheer cost of this ideological nonsense, especially when we've got brown coal reserves that would last 539 years, black coal reserves which will last for 111 years, and we're sabotaging our greatest competitive advantage, cheap energy, by pushing the price of power through the roof. And business knows this. Big business writes to me. I don't know why they don't write to government. Surely if you wanted to harm your country, you'd put your energy security at risk. The idea that you could power a modern economy with giant steel wind turbines and solar energy verges on criminal stupidity. I mentioned recently that Professor Hughes of Edinburgh University calculated the UK bill for wind energy by 2020 will cost British consumers a staggering $120 billion. Here, according to the rubbish peddled since Rudd became Prime Minister, before the end of this decade, it's 2014 now, we'll have spent $17 billion erecting between 7 and 10,000 wind turbines. You're paying. Worldwide, they're waking up about the cost of this and what it's doing to health. And this renewable energy nonsense has got no currency in Europe. Germany and China are pushing ahead with new coal-fired electricity plants because of political and public concern over the cost of renewable energy and the health consequences of wind turbines. Britain's once Conservative-led government is in open revolt. And even Energy Australia's chief executive, Richard McIndoe, said 2 years ago, there is no social licence to ramp up the construction of wind farms so rapidly. He said, we're just going to end up falling flat on our face from a social licence perspective because the social licence isn't there. But these things are everywhere, in every state in Australia, conga lines of them. The Deputy Chief Health Officer of Victoria refuses to conduct a health impact statement. People have been getting sick for years. No one assesses the noise inside people's homes. Under government guidelines, it doesn't have to be measured. And this is going on all over Australia. Anne Gardner in the middle of this wretched Macarthur wind farm in Victoria, wrote to AGL and said, come down here for a few nights, stay with us, stay with Jan Hetherington, stay with Ray Gelbart, stay with Louise and Simon Manifold, stay with Maria and Colin Linky. 140 turbines, she said, of enormous size. She wrote to Scott Thomas, the General Manager of Power Development with AGL. She said, I wonder how you would feel if you and your wife were affected in the same way that we've been impacted over the last few months. This monster is destroying us. This is from a health perspective. Yet if it weren't for government subsidies, wind power would never, ever be cost-effective. Wind turbines are technological and economic white elephants. And, of course, when the wind doesn't blow, no electricity. They're expensive and they're inefficient. And they're unhealthy. Now, the wind industry itself is proof that they're unhealthy, because wind companies are paying people to put these wind turbines on their property and then sign them to secrecy. Listen to this letter which came to me. One contract. Quote, can't tell you who the poor bugger was because he'd get blown away. But the contract said this. The landholder, he's had to sign up. This is in his contract. The landholder acknowledges and agrees that it accepts the noise impacts, which the landholder also agrees will not cause him or her nuisance, and agrees that he or she will not make any claim, objection or complaint, and releases the developer from any claim of liability. Blake doesn't know what to do. Wind turbine, renewable energy, this is pink bats, the building the education revolution, and NBN all together. And yet nothing is being done. Tony Abbott has to scrap this stuff immediately. Well, you then get the AMA on March 18, releasing a position paper on wind farms. The AMA, do you mind? No listed authors, no references, no information that's got anything to do with health research, but the AMA supporting wind farm development applications, and there's been an outcry from across the world. A South Australian doctor, Dr. Gary Hopkins, has 30 years' experience as a physician. He wrote to the AMA, quote, I am rendered speechless by your irresponsible, ill-researched, ill-advised and reckless statement that those who might suffer physical effects from the presence of wind turbines are suffering a psychological condition, anxiety. Your very statement itself causes anxiety in those likely to be affected. This is the AMA, in bed with the wind turbine industry. And as I've said many times, if these things didn't cause ill health, why wouldn't we put them in Macquarie Street or along Parramatta Road or Collins Street, Melbourne, or Kings Park in the middle of Perth if they didn't cause any problems in relation to health? There are people all over Australia writing to me about this health issue. I don't know why they don't write to government, but they're desperate. They have become refugees in their own homes, on their own land. The Irish Department of Health recently warned people who live near wind turbines that they risk having their health and psychological well-being compromised. The Deputy Chief Medical Officer in Ireland said, there's a consistent cluster of symptoms related to wind turbine syndrome which occurs in a number of people in the vicinity of industrial wind turbines. You see, wind turbine syndrome, this is when they're in earshot of the noise made by these blades as they spin around. And the blades are make what are called infrasound vibrations. And you can't consciously hear them, but they've got an effect on the inner ear. And they cause fatigue and dizziness and headaches and insomnia and all the rest of it. Yet AGL recently sent, the same AGL from up Gloucester Way, a letter to 12 medical centres in southwest Victoria. AGL, they're wind turbine vandals too. They sent a letter to 12 medical centres in southwest Victoria in November 2012. The letter's only just come to light. I've just got a copy of it. They informed the doctors that there was no evidence of health impact from wind turbines, and should any patient present with symptoms that they attribute to AGL's turbines, AGL recommends the doctors tell patients to consult either AGL or the AGL website. The website, of course, also indicates that wind turbines have no impact on health. This is the large Australian company, AGL, attempting to influence medical doctors, and it has, in a significant part of Victoria, violating the privacy of patients, resulting in doctors neglecting patient illness and refusing to help sick people. Where is government? It stands by. Professor Alec Salt is an eminent world authority from the Washington University School of Medicine. And in a journal last week called Acoustics Today, he said the measurement of turbine noise used by the wind industry and all Australian regulatory agencies was highly misleading as it masked the level of infrasound. Yet here we have our own AMA stating that subaudible infrasound cannot cause health effects. On the line from Missouri, St. Louis in America, is Professor Salt. Professor Alec Salt, good morning.
Good morning, Al.
You've got expertise in this field. What do you make of the AMA?
Their position is it's very carefully crafted words. They talk about whether the health effects are accepted, and basically any scientific issue, there's always a degree of acceptance. I mean, if you look at either global warming or evolution, there's some people don't accept these things. So the point is that they're sheltering behind very carefully crafted words.
But
there is good evidence.
Yeah, I mean, say that. Sorry, good evidence. Go on.
Sorry, I mean, there's good. I mean, we have good evidence that this sound is definitely picked up by the ear. I mean, the sounds that you can't hear, the infrasound down to 1 hertz or something. It's 1 cycle a second. We know this is detected by the ear at quite low levels, and even though you don't hear it, it is still stimulating the ear and potentially affecting you in other ways.
And what does it do to people?
From our perspective, it may account for the sleep disturbance people have, like thunderstorms wake you up. Even when they're far away, thunderstorms wake people up because it's the low frequency of the thunderstorm that's you're detecting. So the point is, if the wind turbine is generating at a low frequency like this, it's potentially going through pathways that could disturbing his sleep.
So what impact, I mean, does this have? Could this have on pregnant women, on children, on the elderly, on neighbours?
Well, obviously, if you're disturbing people's lives, there are other symptoms people have that we think the sound is generating a condition called endolymphatic hydrops in the ear, and this gives rise to like dizziness. You feel like you're seasick. So this noise, mild nausea, feeling sort of slightly dizzy and upset. I mean, if people are living like that long term, then of course it's going to be bad for their health.
Yeah, but the AGL, one of the proponents of wind farming here, sends a letter to 12 medical centres in southwest Victoria informing doctors there's no evidence of health impacts from wind turbines and tells them what they should do if patients present with symptoms. What would you say to that?
I'm appalled by it. I mean, basically the medical profession, same as the acousticians, should be protecting people from these things. So the idea that the medical profession is telling these people to go away, it's in their imagination. It's a nocebo effect. All this claptrap that they tell people. I mean, it's outrageous, to be honest. I mean, basically, people should. I mean, if you go to a doctor with most other ailments, they will take it. They will consider it and try and find the cause of the problem.
Didn't we have this with tobacco and asbestos, where massive amounts of money were made to persuade the world that there were no consequences of tobacco smoking?
And that's exactly the problem now, is that you have a very powerful, well-funded industry that is trying to protect their turf, to protect their financial interests, and eventually science will prove what is going on, but it requires scientists who are not affected by the money that's sloshing around supporting these things.
That's right. Professor Salt, look, we'll leave it there, and I'm glad that we've spoken to you, but we may need to speak again.
Okay.
Can I just say, though, that I was sent a quote the other day from the novelist Émile Zola. Quote, "If you shut up truth and bury it under the ground, it will but grow and gather to itself such explosive power that the day it bursts through, it'll blow up everything in its way." And this may well be the fate of those politicians and others who turned a blind eye to the problems associated with wind turbines, coal seam gas, and the lot of it. I don't apologise for alerting you to these issues. Everyone I meet says, well, I wouldn't like to live in a coal seam gas field. Everyone I speak to says, well, I wouldn't like to live next to a wind turbine. What do we do as Australians? Just let other people suffer? Not Alan Jones.